What's up guys, it's Ella. Welcome to my channel whether you are new here or not. Today we are going to be going over 6 of the most unique romance books I've ever read. If you are like me and you are an avid romance reader, you probably have noticed that a lot of romance books follow along the same sort of formula. You know, there's a meet cute, and then there's the courting and the cute moments and the will they won't they kind of tension, and then they finally admit their feelings, get together, etc. There's a third act breakup, and then there's a big grand gesture and the book ends. And while I love that formula, my favorite books follow that formula, there is also something repetitive about it within romance books. So these books are ones that I have read that really stood out to me in that maybe they do follow that formula that I just talked about, but they also might have different elements or, you know, crazier elements, or they are just, maybe they don't follow that formula. I don't know. There's just some different things about these romances, and I've never read anything else like these individual books. I should say these are contemporary romances. Fantasy romance is an entirely different ball game that we're not going to get into in this video, but we can get into it in a later video if that is something that you find appealing. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to talk about is one of the only 2 books that I own from this list, and that is one that I've talked about a lot, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I know you're probably sick of hearing me talk about this at this point. If you are not new to my channel, you've heard me talk about this several times. However, this book is so good, and I think the reason that I think it's so good is because it's so unique and unlike anything else I've read definitely this year, possibly ever. I will give a very brief synopsis since I do talk about this book very frequently on my channel. But this book is about a woman named Florence Day who is a ghostwriter for a romance author. She broke up with her boyfriend, her long-term boyfriend, in a pretty devastating way and doesn't believe in love anymore. So she's really struggling to write the 4th book on her ghostwriting contract. When she goes to speak to her new editor about, hey, I don't think I can write like a romance book with a happy ending, he says, you have to, you're a romance author. I'm really not going to accept anything else. And so she's struggling with that. In the midst of struggling with that, she gets a call that her dad dies, okay? So she has to go back to her hometown that she hasn't been to since she graduated high school because she was bullied and treated very poorly in her hometown. And she goes back because to her father's funeral. Her father owns a funeral home, so that's where the funeral's held. And the kicker, the reason that she was bullied, the kicker, the whole plot of this book is that Florence can see ghosts. Like the kid from the Sixth Sense. That was hard to say. Sixth Sense. So Florence and her dad both could see ghosts, and at his funeral, she hears that a ghost is there. Like she senses that a ghost is there. She goes to the front door to see who's there, and who is it but her book editor that said she has to write romance, and he's a ghost because he was in an accident. So this book is a romance, obviously, but it's a romance between like the ghost book editor and Florence, and I know that pushes a lot of people off because it's like, well, how could she end up with a, you know, like a happily ever after with a ghost? Don't worry about it. Ashley Poston has got your back. She's not gonna let you down, I promise. I pinky promise. I pinky promise. So definitely pick up this book if you are looking for a unique romance, because I love it so much, and it's unlike anything I've read before. The second one that I own is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This book, I have the British cover, by the way. You've probably seen the American cover more if you're from America, but this is the British cover because I ordered it online and this is what they sent me. I don't think I've ever talked about this book on my channel, but it is about Tiffy and Leon. Leon works nights and Tiffy works during the day, and neither of them can afford their apartment entirely on their own. So Leon puts out a, you know, roommate request that he needs someone who can sleep in the apartment at night, and he'll sleep in it during the day. So they like share an apartment, and they've never met. So they leave each other notes and stuff like that, and they end up, like, it's a romance, so they end up falling in love. This book, again, is something unlike anything I've ever read, I feel like, because the characters don't meet until pretty far into the book, and it's, yeah, there are other romances that are like pen pal romances and stuff like that, but this feels different because they live in the same house, they're sharing a space, their lives intertwine in a lot of different ways that they don't even realize, and they have never met, and so they're like falling in love with someone they can't put a face to. I don't know. I thought that this book was very good and a very, like I said, unique romance, and I can't wait to read other Beth O'Leary books because I have like 2 more sitting back there, I think, that I should probably get to, and I know a lot of people are really talking about The No-Show. So yeah, I strongly recommend The Flat Share if you are, once again, looking for a unique romance, which you probably should be if you click on this video, because that's the premise, right? Am I wrong? The next romance that I have to talk about is See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This book I read during my 24-hour readathon when I was on my really big Rachel Lynn Solomon kick, because we love her. This is a young adult / new adult romance. The characters are 18 and freshmen in college, and on the first day of this girl, what is her name? Y'all know how terrible I am with characters' names. Let me take a look. This book is about Barrett. She is a freshman in college. It's her first day of freshman year in college, actually, and she has a terrible day. Her roommate turns out to be her mortal enemy from high school. Everything goes wrong, right? She sets a frat on fire. Not a great first day of college. Significantly worse than my first day of college. So she is, having a really rough first day. She goes to bed thinking tomorrow better be better, and she wakes up and tomorrow is her first day of classes again. So she just keeps, it's like a Groundhog Day thing. She just keeps living the same day, her first day of college, over and over and over again. And eventually she realizes that someone else also is living the same day over and over and over again. And it's just such a sweet romance because there are a lot of, they have infinite days. So they are trying to figure out how to get time back on track, and they're also the only 2 people in their little world, so everyone else that they kind of meet, they try to meet, forget about them because to them they just go to the next day or they start the day over, etc. So I thought this was a very unique romance, and I really loved, there's like a montage part where you're like, you know what, we're just gonna spend a series of days having really cute montagey moments, and I absolutely loved it. I strongly recommend for all ages. I'm not a young adult reader, not a young adult fan, but I really do enjoy this book. Also, curvy heroine and biracial hero. So definitely check it out. The next book on this list is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren does not usually stray away from the formula, but in this one they really did. This is a very unique romance about a girl named Lily Wilder who grew up in the Wild West. Her dad, his name was Duke Wilder, and he was a famous adventurer / cowboy kind of figure. Lots of people thought that he knew the whereabouts of this specific lot of treasure that was left lots and lots of years ago, and we're following his guides to try to go find the treasure. Lily, after losing her ranch that it was her dream to own, she starts up a business that was using her father's memory, because he passed away, using his memory and his name to find treasure. She uses his name and his story to try to make this business where people ride horses out in the middle of the desert and they're adventurers for a day, cowboys. And this book gets really weird. So one day this guy that her first love, named Leo Grady, who I loved. Leo Grady shows up to take one of her tours / scouting adventures with some of his friends, and things just go south. His friends are shady, his friends are weird, and this book, I can't tell you why this is such a unique romance without giving away a lot of plot points, but let me just tell you that I've never read anything that left me so baffled, but not in a bad way. I liked it. I liked this book significantly more than I thought I did, and I think back on my time reading it very fondly, but it was not what I was expecting, and it definitely didn't follow the formula that I talked about at the beginning of this video. So if you are looking for a unique romance and you like Christina Lauren's style of writing, I definitely recommend you check out this book because it's bizarrely wonderful. and that's the only way I can think to describe it. The next book is a little bit of a downer, but for people, I always recommend this for people who like Colleen Hoover books because most of Colleen Hoover books are also downers. The Lucky Ones by Liz Lawson. This book is about a girl, so there was a school shooting at this high school. There is a girl whose brother, I believe, was killed in the school shooting, and there's a boy whose mom is the lawyer that is defending the school shooter. And these people, their paths keep crossing, and eventually it is a romance between these two high schoolers. Again, this is YA, but I'm not a huge fan of YA, so if you don't typically read young adult romance books, I can assure you that this doesn't have the same cheesy vibe. It's a very intense, like, emotional read, but it's also uplifting, and it talks about what do you do when you're given the opportunity that people around you aren't, people in your family aren't, and what do you do when your family members are making choices that you don't agree with, but they, you know, reflect really poorly on you. So I think that this book is, like I keep saying, it's a very unique story. It's, yes, very sad, obviously, because of the subject matter. Definitely check trigger warnings, but if you can if you can handle the trigger warnings, I definitely think that this book is one that a lot more people need to read. I thought this book was just absolutely amazing and really emotional, and I have so many pictures. I think I read it like 1 year ago last week or something like that, and pictures came up in my Snapchat of me just sobbing. So the last book that I'm going to talk about is a Mariana Zapata, because could I get through a video without talking about a Mariana Zapata? Probably not. Dear Erin by Mariana Zapata. This is not one that I typically talk about. However, it is told... Ella, back up. At the beginning of the book, this girl named Ruby, if you've read From Lukov with Love, Ruby is Jasmine's sister, and you saw Ruby and Erin in that book. But anyway, Ruby signs up for a service where you can write letters to current, like, military, members of the military that are serving in, like, deployed. That's the word I'm looking for. The word I was looking for was deployed. She writes letters to deployed service members, and she gets paired with this guy named Aaron, and they start writing letters back and forth. They really get along, and the whole first part of this book is told in letters and emails, which put me off when people said that. Like, when people were describing this book, I was like, I don't know that that's a book I'm particularly interested in picking up, because I don't love the whole, you know, pen pal trope. However, this one, absolutely adored it. They are lovely. It's a lovely book, and of course they do eventually meet. It's Mariana Zapata though, so it's slow burn, and the emails go on for longer than they do in a lot of books, but I really could feel their connection through the emails, and I could feel the foundation building, and they meet as a result of those emails. It's not one of those books where they have like a chance meeting. They meet as a result of those emails because they wanted to meet each other and get to know each other. So I think that's different too, and it's definitely different than a lot of romances that I've read. So those are 6, I think that's what I said at the beginning, 6-ish of the most unique romance books that I have ever read. Like I said, I read a lot of romance books, and a lot of them follow the same pattern, so these are just ones that I thought strayed, whether it's a little or a lot in some cases, strayed away from the typical pattern, formula, etc. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see you when I see you. Bye guys.